everybody, welcome to Off the Pod with Shane
and Jacob.
So today we'll be reviewing Season 1 of The Americans. So before we get into it, I actually have a couple of questions prepared for you, to be honest, because, I'm diligent and not everyone is, Some people have just literally watched the episode, the seasons, few minutes before podcasting has begun.
3 hours. No, 2 hours.
So you finished it 2 hours before we started podcasting?
Yeah, about 2-3 hours.
Okay, so 2-3 hours beforehand. Okay, not bad, I guess. I mean, it is 13 episodes long. Before we get into the series, I want to ask you, before you even watched it, because this is interesting. I always find this to be interesting. Why did you pick to watch The Americans? Did somebody tell you about it? Did you see it?
I think someone told me about it. I think it was my girlfriend who told me about it, and I think she was watching, and I caught up to her.
Yeah.
And I think that was the only reason I watched. It's like Vikings. I watched Vikings because she watched it. She told me, "Oh, watch Vikings. It's amazing. It's historical." So I was like, "Okay, I'll watch it." Same.
Okay. Also, before you started watching it, did you have any preconceptions?
No.
Did you think of anything? Did you just be like, you went in testicles deep? Did you? Okay. I thought this was family friendly. I don't know what words we can use at this point. Anyway, let's keep this in.
But when you know your part.
What was wrong with my part?
Testicles deep. Scrotum deep.
Scrotum deep. Mine's are technical terms. I actually came to this. You come to different shows. It always interests me how people find shows. I always ask them, "How do you find out about this?" Marketing is half the work of any industry. So I'm always interested to find out how people find things. The way I found The Americans, I remember watching. I can't remember for the life of me what film it was. Some film, some TV show. Can't remember now. I was watching this and I was very interested in this actress called Keri Russell. And I just found her really compelling in this show. And I thought, let me do a Google search of Keri Russell. And I found on Wikipedia, everything she's done. And the biggest thing I found was, because I'm more attracted to TV shows than films. And I found The Americans. Google, Wikipedia did, like a lot of people. And it was about, because it was to do with spies, like you said, but it also had to do with Russia and Soviet Union. And I realized, there's a lot. This was years ago, obviously. I realized there's so little I know about, Russia and the Soviet Union. I've always found it boring. So I thought, let me get into it. I'm interested in Keri Russell. She seems to be a good actress. She's a main role character. Let's see. And first episode in, I was hooked. But before we get into this, just give me your early impressions of the series, before we break it down. Don't give me reviews or anything, just overall, what did you think? What did you think of episode 1?
What I thought about episode 1 was, it's okay. I didn't think it was anything genius. I didn't think it was anything big, it wasn't, episode 1 wasn't anything big for me. I just thought, I'll watch through this because she's watching it, so we'll just watch it together. But the second thing that actually did make me watch episode 2 and 3 and so on and so forth is just the fact what it was about. Like I said in the beginning, before in last I think podcast, was I like stories which are true, which are non-fiction, and I like stories which are based on people, not an amalgamation of people, like one from here, one from there. It's based on a certain people. And when I read about it, that this guy was actually true, this guy existed, I can't remember his name now.
Are these real characters?
Yeah.
I didn't know.
Yes, the certain characters which are dropped into the season.
No, I mean the two main characters. Are they?
No.
Okay.
No, yes. These
are they based on real deep cover agents?
They are, they were based on the illegals, but back in 2010, which Russia and America swapped in Ukraine, based on them.
Okay.
And there was Anna Chapman, which was caught in UK. Obviously, she's not in here, but that was a part of it. She was, I think, the aide to an MP. There was a woman who was the aide to an MP. So it's based on a true story. And when I read about it, and I read that it was based on a true story, obviously they couldn't write fully about the people for two reasons. One, it's a government secret.
Okay.
So when Wiseman was writing the script...
Classified.
When Wiseman wrote the script, or any script he wrote for The Americans, CIA had to read it first. Yeah.
Really? That's how it was?
Yeah. So
how did you know this? I didn't know any of this.
This is what I read back then.
See, off the pod, half of us do background research on this stuff,
No, if it's interesting, I will do background. If I'm not interested in the story, I will not do. But yeah, Wiseman basically CIA had to read everything. So what you see, now it's fine. It's not based on like actual people, like story will be changed, this and that here and there will be changed. That's fine. And I've read a couple of other people who actually did exist. Certain names they dropped, which I can't remember right now, but and the deaths were actually the same way that they died in real life as well. And that's what actually took me in.
Okay, that's actually made the series way more interesting than I thought, because I went in assuming this is pure fiction.
No.
And that obviously, we have a long history with the Cold War, so I just assumed that a lot of material, of, like events here and there, but I never assumed like these were real people and these things may have happened.
And Wiseman worked for the CIA. That's how he knew all these stories.
Oh, the creator.
The creator. The writer.
I see. Okay.
Weisberg. Yeah, he was a former CIA officer.
Okay, that explains a lot, because I was gonna... This is what my impressions were of just the very first episode. Like, it just had this James Bond feel to it, in the sense that if you watch any James Bond movie, there's always a lot of violence, there's fighting every couple of minutes, and there's a lot of sex. It's very sexual, because, sex sells, and there's just a lot of close calls of like, oh, they're just about to get caught. Like, there's all these sort of James Bond movie things that they put into the episode. And I was like, okay, this is like a good popcorn flick. Like, they've used the things that work for a blockbuster movie, the things that work for popular shows, they used for this. But at the same time, it was like, it just seemed realistic to me. Like, okay, like later on we'll find out they do things and you go, okay, that makes sense. Like, yes, if you were a spy, you would have to do this, or else you can't keep your cover. And I was like, they really went deep into it. But if it is that, like, these guys were, people who worked in the CIA, the creator worked in the CIA, and this is based on actual stories, that explains a lot of things. But my first impressions of the series, I did not think it was, like, you said you didn't think it was that amazing. Is that
No. Yeah.
Okay. I actually thought it was very, very well written and structured, because the thing about a lot of TV shows, one of the problems I have with TV shows is most of the time you'll watch one episode, two episodes, and you'll drop it. And you're not going to commit to 13 episodes. This is exactly 10 hours long. Exactly 10 hours. Everything combined is like almost exactly 10 hours long. Committing 10 hours is hard. So you have to make the story constantly moving, and it moves. This is unlike, previous example that will not be named again and again in every podcast that we've reviewed. But the pacing is I thought it was really, really good. Anyway, to get into some specifics here, let's introduce some characters here.
So anyway, we're introduced to Phil and Elizabeth Jennings. Phil, they're married. And in the first opening scene, I think they have a third person, which I can't remember the name. Robert, yeah. Who, they basically in the opening scene, they're running after someone, trying to catch someone.
Yeah.
And this person was a defector from Russia to United States, and he basically, he sold information or something. He defected to America, and they were trying to catch him and not deport him, but rather take him to back to Russia, trial him, and obviously execute him at the end. And they catch him, they take him to the house, and then I think we're introduced to the FBI agent. I think moves in, which is Stan. Stan and his family moves in next door. I think that's about it in a nutshell.
So, in a nutshell, yes. In a nutshell, that's all, you've got these two people, Americans, regular family. They live in the suburbs, they live, they perfectly blend. They have got two lovely kids, Paige and Henry, But actually, they do cover... children. I mean, the thing that you missed out was the main characters.
We don't know yet.
We do know.
We don't know until the flashback. Until the flashback, we don't know what's happening.
No, I just mean in general, we know in episode 1.
Okay.
In episode 1, in general, we know. These are deep cover spies sent by the Russians, and they're part of an organization, part of the Soviet organization. I think it's called Directorate S. And apparently, these guys, they have a rule, and this one I underlined this when I was watching the series. When they come into the United States, or when they even start their training, so even in their training phase, they don't speak Russian, they just speak English. So even when they're in Russia training, they only use English. And I really love that, because it just gave them so much opportunity in flashbacks, and when Russian meets Russian in America, they just speak English. They just sort of wrote that into it. Like, okay, let's maximize English speaking, in this story.
One thing I liked about the show was
If you speak English, then speak with a proper English.
Speak with a proper English
RP
accent.
English.
However, if you're going to speak Russian, if you're going to introduce a character as Russian, then hire a Russian speaker, hire a Russian actor, actress.
Yeah.
And that's what they did for this show.
Not for the two mains, though.
Not for the two mains. Okay, main actors is fine. Main actors are fine because they're just anomalies. But the support, which you have, because for the main actor you're looking for the best actor, right?
Yeah.
But for the support you can hire from other people, from a bigger spectrum.
Yeah.
So at least those people you have to hire Russians, and most of the embassy workers were Russians.
Yeah.
Most of them had no accent, and the girl, Nina was, for example, she was from Afghanistan who had a Russian father, and the other guy, anyway, most of them were Russian. They had no Russian accent. The captain, they had no Russian accent.
General Zhukov,
he's Russian as well.
Arkady, they were all Russians.
They're all Russians as well. Yeah.
And their English accents were Russian.
Yeah.
And they also spoke Russian at times and when it was subtitled.
Yeah.
But, I did like that. Like, there was a level of authenticity. But also, I just like the fact that one of the FBI agents, my favorite FBI agent, I think his name's Chris. I think he's Mexican. He's the Mexican. Amador. Chris Amador.
No one calls him Chris.
They call him Chris.
Amador.
No, his boss calls him Amador. Gad, his boss, calls him Amador. The rest of them call him Chris.
Okay.
Chris is used. It is used. We want to get into this now. Like, Chris is not used. It is used. Anyway, Amador, just to make it clear that he's Mexican, he's an outsider, like he's non-white. They even make a joke in the first episode.
No, but Amador is based on thingy, isn't it?
On what?
Beethoven. Or is it Mozart? Yeah. It's not based on because he's Mexican. Amador is Mozart's middle name, I think. Amador Mozart, something like that. It's nothing to do with Mexico, my friend.
But he is an ethnic minority.
Yes, but if I say Amador, you're not gonna guess he's Mexican.
Type in Amador. Let's Google this. Let's keep this into the off the podcast. I mean,
Amadeus.
Yeah, I know. It's Amadeus.
Amadeus.
Amadeus. It's Amadeus.
Yeah, Amadeus.
It's not.
Amador. It's so similar.
So when Amador mentions that these deep cover agents in Directorate S, they blend in perfectly, get married, all this, and they don't speak Russian at all. Not a Nietsk, nothing. I was like, okay, this is like the writers literally doing this. Like, this is when you realize they did this specifically to make sure to maximize English speaking at all times, as opposed to constantly jumping, Russian, Because one of the annoying things about these multinational TV shows is whenever you're in America dealing with Americans, you're speaking English. Fine. But then, when you're dealing with Russians speaking in Russia, or not even in Russia, even in America, there's Russian, so you have this subtitle wars. One time I'm listening, other time I'm listening and reading, and I always get annoyed by this. Now, one of the good things about the show is they keep this to a minimum. Very low. They don't force you to read subtitles constantly. So I like that bit. Now, one of the problems with the Americans... Okay, before we get into problems, to be fair, let's not insult the series by talking about problems first. I really enjoyed the fact that it's very much about family. You've got this nuclear family, and there's a number of times they focus on family. Like, there's family trouble between Elizabeth and... what's his name? Phil. How they have problems with the kids. I love that stuff. It's like it's something that you wouldn't have expected in a spy show, like the Cold War as a background, and they're arguing over marital issues, like basic stuff that anyone in America, anyone in Britain, anyone in the world would relate to. Just like, for example, I just love the fact that Paige is 13 and she buys a bra, and this is a big issue in the family. Like, oh my god, she's growing and developing and she's wearing a bra. And I was like...
See, I don't know about America, I don't know about the West, how they viewed girls wearing bras. But one thing I know about Russia and post-Soviet countries...
Why do you know so much about Russia and post-Soviet countries? Are you from there?
Well, you're going to be doing the editing.
I will.
Okay.
I don't mind.
Yeah. One thing I know about Russia and post-Soviet countries is wearing a bra for a young girl is a no-go area.
Well, 13 though.
Yeah.
But she's developed.
You
13.
wear from about maybe 15, 16. So 13 is too young to wear a bra. You know,
Okay.
you don't wear a padded bra. That's what she was buying, by the way. She was buying a padded bra. What you wear is a sports bra, which
Okay.
is hugging, more of a hugging rather than lifting,
Uh,
I guess. And I think that's what she was. There were hints where Elizabeth, kept saying, "You know what my mother would do. You know what my mother would do." And I think this was more of her wanting to say where she's from, but in a very subtle way. Because I don't know about America if they would scold their kid for wearing a bra, you know, even in
maybe not.
1930s,
Maybe not nowadays.
30s, 40s. I don't know about if they would then, because the Roaring Twenties happened,
No,
and
I think they would.
that was pretty messed up. 30s, 40s, obviously World War One, two, 50s. I think 50s everything was just feminism and everything was just opened up after 50s and 60s. So and this is based on what 70s, 80s, I think. No,
It's set
later.
in the
No.
80s.
This is 80s. So the mother is what 35, let's say, minus
40, yeah.
15, 20, yeah, so about 60s. I don't think her mother would have scolded Elizabeth for wearing a bra, for example. And I
If
think
she was American.
yeah, if she was American. And I think this is her one way of saying my mother, as in Russia, as in Russian mother, would never allow me. You know what she mentions. She says something. If I spoke like that to my mother, you know what she would do to me. Like
Yeah.
this is like one of the small scenes that what the writers are trying to say is her jumping out of character.
Okay.
But no one else. Only we realize because we know, but the kids don't realize, obviously.
Maybe I don't. I'm not sure that's what's happening. I think she does say things like we're gonna raise them to be socialists, things like that.
To her
So
husband, yeah, to Phil.
yeah, and so she's obviously making it clear for us as an audience. She really wants her kids to love Soviet Union and Russian culture, and she wants to pass those things on. Yeah, I don't really agree with like I'm sure if she was an American, I think women in the 60s, I honestly think they were very conservative. I think
This is 80s.
No, in the 60s, I mean, because she would have. Oh, sorry, she would have been.
But 60s, they were. No, 60. If you watch 60s, the hippies everywhere, and they were pretty open about wearing a bra or even not wearing a bra.
Yeah, but apparently, I've heard about this recently, though. In the 60s, the situation was you had these isolated places, like in California university campuses, where you had these crazy hippie movements, but the rest of the country was still very much like 1950s. But then during the 1970s, all that crazy stuff that was happening, the sex, rock and roll, drug, sex, rock and roll culture, that kind of, Beatles culture that was isolated in university campuses in the 60s basically blew out into mainstream culture. And apparently the first mainstream bras, bikinis. People started wearing bikinis en masse in public, public beaches in the late 60s and throughout the 70s. It was a standard thing. So I think maybe the 70s is when the cultures really changed, and 80s it was like, okay, now this is the fact of life. But I do think, even if she was an American, she would say those things to her kids, because the feeling I got was the 80s was really when the culture was broken, like the conservative history, like you could no longer pass on that tradition to the kids in the 80s. That's how I saw the situation. Anyway, generally these issues around family, I love because it's just I wasn't expecting it to be so family focused. But obviously the main story is you've got these two main characters, they're Russian agents working for the Soviet Union, and on the other side, literally you have this man, FBI guy, it's called Stan. He's also a family guy, moves in right next door just by pure coincidence. And it's basically your typical cat and mouse story where Stan is part of counterintelligence in FBI and he's trying to hunt these guys down, basically. He's basically trying to hunt down spies. And like you said, a defector, Russian defector, gets caught by Philip, gets caught by Robert, gets caught by what's her name? Elizabeth. I keep having trouble with names in every TV show. And it's more weird with these people because they have actual Russian names as well. So
yeah.
and also another thing I just remembered, These guys are proper spies because they're like meeting. For example, there's an FBI secretary called Martha, and Phil goes to meet with her and pretends to be Clark and says, "Oh, I work for another part of the government, and my job is to oversee."
How dumb was she?
Well, she was in love, but we later on find out. Love makes you dumb. She was.
I told Anne. I said, I mean, I felt bad for her. I mean,
I felt bad as the series went on. I felt bad because this is purely evil.
I thought this is evil. He marries her and everything, and parents.
Spoiler alert.
Well, we're gonna talk about all that anyway. But yeah, I mean, he was evil. But I think he was reluctant. I think he was reluctant to do that, to marry her, but he had to.
He had to, yeah. Later on we'll find out he married, and his name was Clark. And this is the thing, these people have 50 different names for different situations, so I don't think I should be blamed for not remembering their names. But remember, Phil, Elizabeth, those are the main characters. But the core of this story is, you get this Russian defector, they missed the boat. The plan was to get him on a boat to Russia. They missed the boat, and now they're just stuck with this guy. They throw him into the back of their car, and it's this really unusual situation. They don't know what to do with him. But there's another really, everything that happens in the pilot, everything is important for the rest of the series. For example, you find out Phil is actually the more American of the two.
Yeah.
And she is the more Russian. She's more loyal to the country. And Phil, for example, they mentioned, the FBI mentioned, if you're a Russian defector, we'll give you $3 million to resettle. And Phil actually says in the first episode, listen, Liz, we might...
That's what they gave to Timoshenko, the guy they kidnapped. That's what they gave to him, was $3 million to defect to Russia, to America.
Yeah.
And he offered him, well, not offer, but he proposed it to him. He said, you could get the same thing while he was in the boot of the car.
Yeah.
And obviously he turned it down to him, but he actually contemplated it.
But these resettlement packages, is there a sort of... Is there an agreement? You have to provide us with all this information, and you have to keep talking? Because Phil said, "Oh no, Timoshenko was stupid. We won't talk at all. We will just disappear into Middle America. They'll never know." Timoshenko was stupid because he started talking, and that's why they found him.
No. He said Timoshenko was stupid because he went on speeches.
Oh, I see.
That's why. Because he gave around the city giving speeches. He said, "We won't do that. We'll just disappear to the middle of America, and no one will find us."
I see. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm sure out of all the spies, maybe one of them was dumb enough. Well, it just seems ridiculous. I didn't actually realize he would be that dumb.
Yeah.
But he was a captain. He was a high-ranking guy within, assuming Directorate X, because
he was the guy who was training Elizabeth.
He was the guy. Okay, so this is where another aspect of the show. There's a lot of violence. There's a lot of fighting, things like that. But one of the things I also like, not just that it's family-friendly, not that it's sexy, that there's a lot of violence, but there's actually love in the story. I'm not really that interested in love stories, but as long as love is a secondary part of the story, I always enjoy it. Like Deadpool. Have you seen the film Deadpool?
No.
In Deadpool...
No, I have. Yeah, I have.
They sell the film as if it's a romantic love story, and it opens on Valentine's Day. Deadpool, It's not... and the joke, it's funny. It is a love story, but come on, it's a Marvel, X-Men universe film. But anyway, in episode 1, there's a flashback, and there's just this horrific scene where Keri Russell's character, Elizabeth, when she's being trained, I'm assuming she was a teenager at the time, she basically gets assaulted by the captain. Just literally in training. She just gets raped, and she is suffering with this throughout the whole thing. And we find out, okay, this is the guy who raped her, and she's literally traumatized by this, Now,
and throughout the whole episodes, she wants to kill him. She literally wants to kill him.
Yeah, and she's trying to defend it, this is what we should do, because this is what the higher-ups will want to do, blah, 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 blah. Whereas Phil is listen, let's use him as a bargaining chip with the FBI to get a resettlement package. And he decides, I don't care what you do, I'm going to do this. And he takes him out, makes a deal with the captain. Keri Russell comes along, has a big fight, and basically really beats the captain up, takes her vengeance, and she walks away. The captain says, "I'm sorry I hurt you." And you see the look on Phil's face. What did you do to her? What did he do to you? And you just see, he's so angry. And he picks up the captain and basically rips out, just breaks his esophagus, just suffocates the man. That was his ticket $3 million ticket to resettlement, and he kills the guy because his wife, because he loves her, you know? And I was like, okay, that's a man right there. You know, he stood for his woman. Even though this is a fake marriage, this is all planned by, this is all a Russian conspiracy, but he believes...
And even though they're not really married.
They're technically not
They
really
don't even
married.
love each other.
But he loves her, though. He wants to make it real. And I was like, okay, I'm hooked now. I love these characters now. Because she's very guarded. Like a lot of women are. You know, she's got her force fields, her barriers up. But he's like, he actually loves her. And I was like, okay, this has got everything. It's got sex, it's got romance, it's got violence, there's families, spy, thriller. What's not to love, people? Like, it's a great first episode. You know, it's got a catchy title, Pilot. You know, it's an excellent. I really enjoyed it. And we get introduced to Stan, obviously the FBI guy. You know, he's the guy that's the main cat out. Who's trying to look for them. You know, he's married with his own son, and there's the series. The episode ends with him. For some reason, this guy is really suspicious. Like, he just has a natural instinct of being suspicious, and he just sort of in the middle of the night, he just breaks into their house, looks into their trunk, and finds nothing.
You know, when he went to the house and when
night.
he checked the trunk of the car, and
Philip was there. Philip was there.
He was in the background. He was in the next to the
hiding
door,
with a gun.
When I first watched it, I thought to myself, okay, what's the likelihood of you suspecting a guy to be a Russian spy, but he's actually a Russian spy, but you're so good at your job, you actually did half guess something right. I thought this is impossible. This is just the writers being, genius, as if he's a genius.
Close call moment.
Yeah. But then I thought about it. Actually, no. This is not one of those scenarios where he's so smart, he might, he guesses that feeling like this. But during this time, everyone suspected everyone else was a spy. The tension was so big that everyone thought the other one was a spy.
Yeah.
Especially the FBI. If you even uttered, there's a scene where God says, even if they utter the word "niet," I want to know who it was.
Yeah.
That's the thing. Even if you spoke Russian, even if you knew Russian, that was enough for them to think you're a spy.
Yeah.
And that's when I realized, no, this is very plausible for an FBI agent to think, who are you? I don't know you. You might be a spy.
Yeah, particularly him, because he used to be undercover with like a white supremacist group.
Yeah.
It's implied he's got these powerful instincts. Like, he's just like one of these old, like, hardened FBI agents. So he would be extremely suspicious. And he also says to his wife, like, Phil is a nice guy, but I have my doubts about him. And then his wife jokes around, like, I think the postman's like a white neo-Nazi, and I think this guy's an alien. She's just making fun. Which is another thing. Let's move on to episode 2, but I want to talk about, his wife, whose character, what's even her name? Did I even write her name down? What is Stan's wife's name?
I have no idea.
Okay, that just answers the question, to be honest, I was going to ask. In episode 2, which is called The Clock, finally, it's been, we've gone from pilot stage, they've gone the whole season, what's the word? Whole season accepted, whole season when the studio... Greenlit. They've been greenlit now. So now we have actual titles, so it's called The Clock. The basic story is, there's this woman who works for the Secretary of Defense. She's not like an advisor or anything. I think she's just a cleaning woman, And the plan is for Philip and Elizabeth to basically poison her son, use that as a bargaining chip to encourage her to put a listening device into the Secretary of Defense's office. That's the plan. And I've literally told you the whole of episode 2. It's a very good episode. It's a great episode. But one of the problems I have with the whole series is they've developed this black woman more than they developed Stan's wife. She did not have much of a role throughout the entire series. I mean, this is the spoiler. She does not get to do much of it. There's only one scene she has that I thought was a good scene. I was like...
The one she breaks up.
The one she just goes insane and accuses him.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, that's a great scene. So this actress can act. She knows what she's doing, and she's interesting, but they just never gave her any lines. And you just go through the episodes, and I just, now looking back, this black woman, I forgot what her name is. What's her
Viola.
Name? Viola was more of an interesting character and was more developed than Stan's wife, who were, like, by the name, we're calling her Stan's wife. We don't know, I don't know what her name is, but, we know Viola. But in this episode, I actually really enjoyed this episode. It was just a very clean episode, and I just loved Viola. Now that I think about it, like her son's sick, he's gonna die in 72 hours. Phil has the antidote. Phil will give you the antidote if you literally take the clock, bring it to me. I'll put a listening device on, and you take it back. Simple as that. And she literally she doesn't want to do it. What would you do in that circumstance? Like your wife and your kids.
I would do it.
Like no questions asked.
No questions asked.
What guarantees do you have though? What if I poisoned your son? I'm a stranger, you don't know me. And I've just done this. I'm saying, okay, Secretary of Defense, do this, listening device, and I'll give you the antidote. What guarantees do you have I'll give you the antidote? Why would I give you that? I could just kill you.
If I think you're a spy, you'll do it. By the way, you don't want to kill. You don't want any bodies. That's why they don't want to kill anyone unless they have to kill people. You don't want bodies flying around. That's the worst thing for a spy.
But they can make her sick, poison her, make her sick.
Yeah, and then the FBI comes and checks or what. All of a sudden, this woman falls sick. They will check.
But the son was sick. She could have gone from the sun.
No,
surely they could have made it look like it was natural causes.
They can check what the son died of, or she died of.
I think the implication was this was an undetectable poison. Unless you knew what you were looking for, you'd never find it.
Even then, they still wouldn't want to do it. Even then,
so you think it was irrational for her to resist as much as
what they used? Sorry.
You think it's irrational that she resisted as much as she did? Because she really did not want to do it until Phil literally put a pillow over her dying son's face to suffocate him, and she was like, okay, finally, I'll do it. That's how much she resisted. She would rather her son die than betray the Secretary of Defense.
Back in, I think it was like 30 years ago, 1980s, 90s, I can't remember exactly, there was the umbrella, the pin she poisons him with the Viola's son. That's based on a true story as well. There was a KGB agent who came to London, a defector who came to London, and then the KGB sent assassins after him. 10 years later, 20 years later, they found him. I think he was Bulgarian, he's Eastern European defector. And they killed him with that. Just like that, with that umbrella.
I've seen that. I've actually heard of that. Yeah, I think that is a legend thing.
And they knew, and the British police found out it was a poison. Basically, if a person dies out of nowhere, okay, this was an agent from Russia, so if he dies, that's a bigger, that's a bigger
clue that
this was
a hit.
Russians did it.
Yeah,
but even then. Again, with this time period, 80s, 90s, well, not 90s maybe, but 80s, anyone dying out of nowhere, especially working for the Secretary of Defense, it doesn't matter. You still investigate. You investigate everyone.
Viola eventually does exactly what Phil and Elizabeth want her to do, and the son is saved, gets given the antidote immediately. But my thing is, right, I don't get why she resisted that. If the best thing to do was to just obey, because in people's natural instinct, when you get taken hostage,
you obey.
You just obey. But why was she resisting? She calls her brother in. There's a big fight, and Phil takes out the brother.
I think she underestimates them. Simple as that.
I think it was ethical. I honestly think this was a Christian woman who realized that this is just evil. This is wrong to betray people like this. This was an evil thing she was doing, and she wouldn't do it. She would rather her son die or whatever than do wrong. I think she was a moral woman. That's what I think. I
personally think she underestimated them. Simple as that. She thought she could call her brother or cousin, I can't remember who it was, with a gun, come and scare them off, and they would bugger off.
Yeah, but that's what she did round one.
Yeah.
And she found out these are seriously dangerous.
And then she realized, okay, she can't.
Yeah, but then she still says no. And then Phil, when Elizabeth tries to explain to her, listen, your son is going to die tomorrow. You need to do this now. And she says, no, remember.
Yeah.
And then Phil basically, suffocates the boy. And she has to make him stop. Why did she resist there? There's no underestimating. These are dangerous people. So why did she do it? It's only because she was Christian. She was religious. She had a moral backbone.
Possibly. Well, yeah, possibly she was religious. For religious reasons, but yeah.
Where's her husband? I mean, single mother. I don't think Martin Luther King would agree to that. I mean, where's the husband?
She had no husband.
So the only other important thing I think that happened in episode 2, The Clock, is Stan turns a Russian agent inside the embassy. He turns Nina.
Yeah.
I didn't actually understand how he got her on side. Actually, no,
she was basically stealing. She was stealing caviars from the embassy and sending cash back to Russia in a stereo.
Oh,
yeah.
So how were the stereos getting to Russia? Wasn't Russia like...
No, you could still post stuff there.
Oh, you could still post stuff
there. Obviously we get checked, but you could post stuff.
So she was hiding the money. Or the caviar or the money?
Money.
So why was there caviar in the stereo shop when Stan and Chris went
She was bribing the guy or giving the guy caviars. Yeah.
Oh, so she was making some serious money then.
And she was stealing from the embassy, obviously, Residentura. And that's how she gets caught.
That's how they got her.
That's how she gets
she would have been sent back to Russia, probably executed over there.
No.
And what?
Siberia.
Okay, that's so worse. That is worse.
She will go to Siberia for sure because of where she did it, embassy.
Okay.
Yeah, if it was, bribery or corruption in some back office in Russia for whatever other reason, like, okay, you're sacked.
Prison.
Prison, yeah, worst case scenario, prison. But then Russian prison is like,
I
wish you went to Siberia, because there was more freedom in Siberia than...
Really?
Yeah, you could do anything you want. You're just in Siberia. You can't come back to the city.
But I thought they were like work, like slave
Well,
labor.
not in the 80s. Not in the 80s. That was the Stalin time, hard labor in Siberia.
What
you were shoveling snow from one end to the other end.
Stalin was hardcore.
You would take the snow from one end. Okay, it's there. Now you have to bring it back again.
And you're thinking, what's the point of this?
That's how they break you.
Isn't there a Greek mythology about a god who has to take a rock from one mountain to another?
Yeah.
Apollo. No, I'm thinking about somebody else. He had the whole sky. He had to hold up the whole sky.
Yeah.
Was that Apollo?
I don't know.
But anyway, that just sounds like hardcore. Stalin was next level, man. The point is, we've got lovely Nina, who's now basically working for Stan. And those are the two main things. And I think, I really enjoyed the episode. It was better. It was better than the first episode, I thought.
Yeah.
It was just very clean. And Viola was amazing. And the more I think about Viola in that episode, she was a really good character. But anyway.
So episode 3 is basically we find out about Gregory. Was the first guy recruited by Elizabeth, black guy. And she actually fell in... Well, they fell for each other. And they were obviously sleeping with each other. And then... In the first episode, if you remember, there was a guy, the third guy, Robert Teller, who was stabbed by Timoshenko, the defector. They dropped him off. This is the reason they missed the boat, by the way, because they dropped Robert Teller at the hospital.
Yeah. They wanted to save him.
Yeah, that was a reason. And they still didn't save it, because now we find out he died.
Everything in the first episode matters.
Yeah, everything matters. Yeah, everything ties in at the end. And we find out he dies. But then what we do find out was he had a secret wife, and obviously a child. Now, what happened was when he died, before he died, he gave a note to his wife and said, basically, call this number and go to this area and sit down and wait there. And what happened was the FBI found out who Robert Teller was through DMV, record checking everything. Let's not go into too much detail. They find out who he was, and then they find out he was married, and then yada. He has a wife and child. But what happens is Gregory, this is when we're introduced to Gregory, I think, isn't it? This point?
Yeah, but I don't understand why Gregory was necessary in any of this.
In the neighborhood. It was a black neighborhood.
So what, the two main characters couldn't...
Even if it was a black neighborhood, the characters couldn't... Because I think they knew that... Well, they thought there was a chance the FBI was following her.
Okay, I understand that, but I don't understand why they introduced Gregory and this whole internal network. I have my own theory why they did, but I don't understand practically why did they introduce this guy?
So who would do it then?
Why couldn't the two main characters? They got the captain and they managed to sort him out. Why couldn't they...
But that was the thing. If Stan was watching them and he saw, he's my neighbor, Stan could have recognized either one of them.
Oh, so they needed...
Yeah. They needed someone else. One who is, I think, from the neighborhood, black, who doesn't stand out.
Okay.
Two, I think the bigger reason was Stan could have been there.
Okay, so they didn't want to show themselves.
Yeah,
so
they can't know. Yeah. I think that was one of the reasons. They couldn't show their face.
Okay, that's fine then. But Gregory as a character, I just thought he was bland and boring. The only value he brought to the series, there's two things. The two good things I liked about Gregory is A, you just see the vulnerability in Elizabeth. Like, she was alone in this foreign country with this man called Philip. She got pregnant and she had no one to talk to. And the only person she connected with was Gregory. Because Gregory was part of the Civil Rights activist movement. He was part of all of that. And he was passionate and all of this and that and the other. And they connected, they bonded. And she that's how they fell in love. So Gregory was important for that reason. Like, showing, like, this woman is vulnerable and she's a human being. Christ, The other thing I really liked about Gregory is, like, it should seem obvious to us, but it just never occurred to me. Obviously, the Soviet Union must have infiltrated the civil rights activist movement. Obviously, they must have done that. Like, why wouldn't they?
Yeah.
This was during the Cold War. This was a resistance movement to the American government.
But they did.
And you would have thought, it just never would have occurred to you until, and it's one of these taboo things you wouldn't even mention. Oh, are you saying all the civil rights activists were working for Russian agents? No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying it's obvious that this would be something that they would infiltrate, and there would be black civil rights activists who would switch to the Russian side and defect. And this is basically what Gregory and his team were. They were basically Soviet supporters, socialists presumably, because they jumped from civil rights activism to now, betraying their country.
This, to be honest, civil rights activists betraying America or whatever, getting in bed with Russia, with Soviet Union. Every time I see this kind of stories, how minorities, I say, subjugated, that's what I was
victimized minority groups.
No, not minorities, subjugated people.
Okay.
They join, let's say, Nazi, they become Nazi, they become socialist, they become...
Okay.
Little do they know, Soviets don't give a shit about them.
No.
They don't. No. They really don't care about you. First of all, you're black. Guarantee you go to Russia.
Find out later. Gregory is not too happy about his options.
Going to Russia.
Like, he's not happy.
Right now, 2020, go as a black man, go to Russia.
It'll be great. It'll be great.
So imagine
Moscow has so much culture. Moscow has so much.
She says that.
I'm like, woman. I'm like, darling, you don't understand the situation.
She doesn't say culture.
It's more cosmopolitan.
That's
than
says
what?
Russia. Than Washington. She says.
Oh my god! I can't believe she said something like that. It's not. How is it more cosmopolitan?
I don't know.
Do they mean like Kazakhs and like?
Probably, yeah. They meant Kazakhs. Like everyone is Russian speakers.
Oh my days! I could not believe she said something like
the
this.
The most cosmopolitan you
not
would get...
Not in episode 3, this is when jumping.
The most cosmopolitan in Russia, in Moscow, you would get is you would have Georgians, Armenians, and Azeris and Kazakhs in that city.
Muslims and Russia and all stuff like that.
Yeah, but no blacks.
Like, where?
The only black people that went to Russia, Soviet Union, and sang, and even then, this was a big thing because it was a new thing, was the group called Boney M. They went to Russia and they sang the song Rasputin. And, well, not Russia, East Germany,
Okay.
East Germany. I think it was East Germany. And this was a big thing. Russia had never seen the black people. Like not big.
In life.
Yeah, in life or on TV. I mean, for them it was a huge thing. So to have a black person living with them...
Yeah, I just think that, anyway, the issue... The point
and it was not even a mix. It was a pure
Okay, bro.
I guess it's a mix.
The point I was trying to make is you never would have thought of this. This is something that you had to know, that the Russians during the Cold War would infiltrate any resistance movement to the Americans, and the Civil Rights Act. I support the Civil Rights Act, should go without saying. The point I'm trying to make is the final point. I will move on because this is really the main thing to get from this is Robert's wife doesn't know anything. And the KGB basically says, we'll take you to Russia or Cuba, whatever country we'll take you, whatever. It's going to be great. And unfortunately for her, she gets killed, drug overdose. But the baby, thankfully, this is the good news, gets sent to Russia to Robert's parents. So at least the baby's safe. The KGB doesn't kill babies. Thank God for that, For all the other things they do, they're not killing Robert's baby. The only point I was going to make about this was something to do with the modern times. During the American elections in 2016, there was this whole chatter around Russian interference in the USA. through Twitter, through social media, things like that. So the Russians would do. They already have, like, we know this. They have an organization in Russia, somewhere in Russia, whose job is to create fake accounts in Twitter, Facebook, things like this, in order to create sort of tensions within the United States. So they'll make all these fake posts just to get riled up, to get people riled up. And there was an American woman, an American academic, who did a study. She looked into all of these Russian interference on social media, and she calculated the biggest number of Russian interference cases of just making up nonsense, things to get Twitter storms up. 30% was targeting the black community. And it was all about institutional racism and police violence and in America.
So BLM is basically Russia.
I honestly believe, and I'm not trying to be offensive, I generally think a lot of these movements are just fanned by outsiders, by Russians, by maybe North Koreans, maybe the Chinese, because anything that attacks the main American system is good for them. I have no doubt that things like the environmentalist movements in the West, like Extinction Rebellion, have a lot of background with Russians' involvement, because these are like problematic situations in the country. I'm not saying #MeToo is influenced, but maybe, who knows? A lot of these things. But anyway, the thing that got me interested was, civil rights activists. We have records to suggest they were infiltrated. Not all of them, obviously. So let's move on.
So in episode 5...
Episode 4 and 5. The thing is, both of these episodes, both episode 4, In Control, and episode 5, Comment, I honestly thought were very thin. There wasn't a whole lot going on.
Well, for episode 5, I only wrote 2 lines.
Episode 4, the president gets shot. So Ronald Reagan gets shot. Okay. And basically the FBI is now completely focused on trying to hunt down the KGB. Okay, that's literally all I remember.
They think it was the KGB, but obviously now we know it was this one guy. It
I
was
don't
this
know.
one guy. He basically watched Taxi. Jodie Foster.
Oh, okay, yeah.
It's a true story, by the way.
I know. Yeah.
He
Jodie
thought
Foster, yeah.
Jodie Foster was
She was
falling in love.
shocked. Yeah, she was shocked by this. She was
Forget
traumatized.
shocked. She would notice him
Yeah.
if he shot the president.
She did.
Yeah,
She did notice.
yeah.
Isn't she a lesbian?
Just came out.
Okay.
5 years ago, I think.
You know what? Apparently a lot of the women who were famous, who came out, career-wise, they didn't have much going on. But Gwyneth Paltrow is very successful. I don't buy that.
Who is she suing?
Harvey, isn't it?
Is she suing?
I don't know if she's suing.
She's not suing anyone.
But she did come out against Harvey Weinstein, though.
She came out suing. Who ruined it?
Angelina Jolie came out.
But she's not suing anyone.
I don't think most of them are, though. Only a fraction of them are suing.
Yeah.
Most of them aren't suing, they're just coming out. But you know what?
But anyway,
Jennifer Lawrence, interestingly,
Hmm.
did she defend Harvey Weinstein?
She admitted, I think, that Harvey tried something on her.
What? No.
No, Harvey did rape her. No, what?
Okay.
No, he did.
Really?
He did, yeah. This is not...
Or did they just
did.
have sex, or is it rape?
Well, let's not go into this topic, but I think she or someone admitted that he did something to her.
Okay.
Jennifer Lawrence.
I don't know how...
Have you seen those pictures? Leaked iCloud pictures?
Yeah, I have.
Have you?
Everyone has, yeah.
Where?
You can still find them
You
online.
can't.
I have seen all of them.
I have to go to dark web to find
I've
them.
saw all of them.
I literally had to go to
There's a
dark web.
website, not dark web website, just a regular website that has every single woman, famous woman's leaked photos on it. I went through each one.
And there's a website on the dark web that has every single leaked of celebrities' pictures on it.
You don't need to go dark web, it's on the regular web.
I couldn't find it, that's why I went there.
You have to work harder. You have to work harder to find them.
I was on dark web for some other shit. Just saying.
Ah. I disavow. Anyway.
What the fuck is a disavow?
Anyway, that's basically all that happens.
So that's what happens in episode 4 and 5.
No, on 5, it's even, okay, these are not the greatest episodes in my opinion. Episode 5 is to do with some encryption card. I'm sure it's important. I just couldn't care
Yeah, from the
less.
FBI, the cars.
Yeah, there was a great scene where, they're trying to steal, an encryption codes. some nonsense.
This was a stupid part, by the way. The FBI changes the encryption code the moment the KGB gets it.
Yeah, because there's a leak. That's how they know there's a mole within the KGB.
No, I understand, but what? Then, because they have a mole at this point, they have Nina.
But episode 5 is when they find out there's a mole. Because that's important for episode 6.
The FBI knows they have a mole in KGB.
Yeah, but KGB doesn't know.
KGB doesn't know. But why would the FBI change knowing that their mole will be caught? Why don't you leave it for 2 days, 3 days, then change it?
Yeah, good point, yeah. But maybe this is a really important encryption code, who knows? Maybe this is like a serious thing.
No, it's like the Enigma. It's like the Enigma, obviously not similar, but not the same, but like the Enigma. They were basically trying to... That's how they were finding out, I think, where the agents were around.
Well, what is it that they were trying to encrypt? They don't have an anti-ballistic weapon system. What is it that they were trying to encrypt? I honestly did not understand.
No, it was a radio system.
Oh, okay.
It was a radio system, portable radio system, where they could listen to every single conversation that was going on. And I think any wavelength between the KGB agents. And there was silence. There was radio silence. They couldn't talk to each other because of this portable system, this portable radio. And that's how Elizabeth went on the
guy who, like you said, made the technology. He has a monopoly over it, essentially.
Yeah.
She's trying to get him to tell her about it.
No. She was trying. She went in as a company was trying to buy his company for $3 million. He said, "Are you crazy? I'll sell it for $30 million, and this is why."
Yeah.
He spills the beans.
Right after he has sex with her, and even before then, he starts beating her.
Yeah.
And it's like, and she basically has to pretend like this is a problem because she's a Russian agent. She could kill him in like 10 seconds, but she pretends like this is
She's scared.
No, she's scared. All this nonsense. I'm like, okay, this is just unnecessary edginess because it doesn't add anything. At least the rape in the episode 1 mattered because it told you like Phil loves Elizabeth. It pays off. This is just nonsense. This is episode 4 and 5. I think were weak episodes. But anyway, the main thing is KGB knows there's a mole. In episode 6, trust me, Philip gets kidnapped. We don't know by who. They say that they're basically working for the American government and he's basically getting tortured. Later on, even Elizabeth gets kidnapped and is put in the same situation and they're both being tortured. Now, we find out that in reality, it's actually the Soviet Union, the KGB, is torturing both of them to confirm, to make sure that they are not the moles who have betrayed the KGB. They obviously, Elizabeth and Phil get very angry. They attack their handler, who's Claudia. We haven't actually mentioned Claudia yet. But Claudia is this old woman who's basically their handler, their connection. Elizabeth goes a bit angry and beats her violently, because they feel betrayed that their own government would torture them and suspect them like this. Anyway, they walk out. Now you continue.
And then what Phil asks Elizabeth, "What did they do to you?" And she says, "Well, they just put me in a room full of pictures and trying to emotionally break me." And he says, "Wait, they didn't torture you?" She was like, "No."
Oh, okay.
That's when he realizes, "You told them about me, about episode 1, about the $3 million." And then she says, "But Phil, I had to make sure that nothing happened. Like you didn't go around, you didn't go to the Americans." And he says, "You didn't trust me. You don't trust me." And that was the moment. This is what I mean. Like this is episode 6 tying in with episode 1.
Yeah. Okay, now I understand. Now I understand you.
Yeah.
But to be honest, at the point of episode 6, things have changed. She actually does care for him now and does trust him. Things have changed ever since he killed her rapist in episode 1. Things have changed.
The reason that she beats Claudia up is basically saying, "How dare you?"
Betrayal. Yeah.
How dare you? I mean, I told you something, but to be honest, she should have known better. In a hindsight, she should have known better.
To be honest, the KGB had no other option because they need to know who the mole is.
Exactly.
So what else are they going to do?
I agree at this point. I agree with KGB. You would torture them.
Now, thankfully, Stan, our man Stan, comes along. He's basically trying to protect Nina, who's the actual mole, and he does a really good thing. He frames some other guy in the embassy, like Nina.
The head of the...
Vasily. His name is Vasily.
So isn't he ambassador?
He's equivalent. He's a high-ranking guy. That's the other thing. I don't actually know a lot of these embassy guys what they do.
It says residentura. Residentura means resident.
Okay.
But, so ambassador, I'm assuming he's the ambassador. Let's go with that.
Let's go with that. And he basically gets framed, I actually like how the FBI did it. They get diamonds that they have in storage. They put it in, Vasily's, whatever, tea. Then the KGB is looking for the mole. They find his tea, find the diamonds. Then also...
And the camera.
They find the camera that Nina, I think, planted, or whoever planted, and it's like everything just, gets together. And it's a really nice moment because...
That guy would have probably got executed.
To be honest, man, he kind of deserves it because Nina was having sex with him and trying to get information to sell to the Americans. And those scenes where he was just this fat old guy on top of her, I was like, this is hashtag Me Too level stuff. This is like what many of these actresses probably felt with like Harvey Weinstein on top of them. Like they were just being abused by this guy. I really felt sorry for Nina. There was this scene, I forgot which episode it was now, 4 or 5 earlier, where Stan says to Nina, "Good job, how'd you get this information?" And she goes, I sucked his...
I didn't ask you to do it.
Stan was shocked, like, Nina, oh my god, like, I didn't ask you to do this. Episode 6 was better, at least, than episode 4 and 5. I mean, come on. Things went downhill for me in episode 4 and 5. Episode 7.
Episode 7 is the moment episode 7 is the moment I realized, you know what, I can watch this show. I can. Because this was based on a true story.
Yeah, it is, yeah.
The Pope.
Even I'm aware of this.
The priest.
Yeah.
And this is what I love. I don't need everything to be true. I don't need everything to be non-fiction. But if you drop in hints like this actually happened, so it's plausible, I will watch it. And what they do is a quintessential KGB tactic of framing someone they want them to do what they want to do. Yeah, it's quintessential.
It's a very good episode. So just to give our audience, just to give them the overview, we have this Polish resistance leader who basically makes his way into America, and he's basically the one who's going to form a government in exile in Paris. He's a resistance leader against the Soviet Union. He's a hero. Everybody loves him, His wife was, apparently, his wife was killed or whatever. So he's the great guy. Now the Soviets, the KGB, are in this unusual predicament. They're like, what do we do? If we kill him, it's a bit bait, like it's like gonna probably cause more revolutions, more problems. But we can't let him live because he's actually gonna cause a lot of problems. So what do? They decide, let's make it so that let's frame him for rape again. Episode 1 classic, another rape here. But the more emotional part of this is obviously Phil. Phil when he was in Russia had a lover. Her name was Irina, I think her name was. And they were in love and all of this. And he meets her again after 20 years. It's really touching. And the two of them are working together to take out this Polish resistance leader. What's his name? Andrei, whatever his name is. And it's a bit, it's really deep, Philip beats up Anne. Her name is Anne or Irina. I think Irina is her Russian name and Anne is like her American name. He beats her up. He has sex with her. And then obviously she goes to the police or whatever, and pretends like Andre did this.
It was a really deep, brutal way of destroying someone. Not only are you accusing him of beating you up, but you're also accusing him of rape.
Yeah,
a priest.
Yeah, and also there's a scene where in the early times before Philip basically mugs Irina just to damage Andrei's hand to make it like, oh, this is the hand he used to beat her with. Yeah. They went really deep. And then obviously this other guy who's a journalist, who's actually an undercover Russian, I'm assuming he's like a Russian agent as well. Communist, or I don't know what he is. He basically says, you're a rapist. Like, you can't be the resistance. What are we going to do? We have to reveal the truth to people. He's like, and then he goes on TV. Poor Andre goes on TV and says, for family reasons, for spiritual reasons, I'm just dropping out of this. No more questions. And it just makes you think, bro, this sort of conspiracy stuff must happen all the time.
It does. There was a politician in Russia, just literally 5 years ago that we know of, who was recorded having sex with, or sleeping with prostitutes. Yeah. And it was found itself online out of nowhere, and this guy just resigned. Yeah. So what he did, why they honey trapped him? That's what it's called, honey trap. Yeah. Why they honey trapped him? I have no idea, but that's what the Russian Putin wanted, and it happens to this day. Not just with Russia,
America, China. I'm assuming it happens in the West
as well. Yeah. In China as well, you see all these people. If you go on Pornhub, you see these cameras in hotel rooms. they are of actresses. You know how many lives of actresses have been destroyed because of people recording them having sex and then just leaking it online? In South Korea as well, there was a K-pop, I think, wasn't it? Recently, there was a K-pop singer or something who...
got honey trapped.
No, it wasn't honey trapped. She recorded... Her boyfriend... That's it. Her boyfriend posted some recordings of her online.
Okay.
It was a revenge porn, basically. But just to go back to the episodes, the guys, this Polish priest, is based on a real person. His name is Jerzy Popiesko.
Okay.
However you spell his name. Basically, what happened was, I'm going to read...
You think Russian names are hard to pronounce. Polish names are impossible.
That's just worse. I'm just going to read a transcript from Wikipedia about his assassination. Okay. So basically, a car accident was set up to kill Jerzy on 13th October 1984, but he evaded it. The alternative plan was to kidnap him. It was carried out on 19th October, same year. The priest was beaten to death by 3 security police officers, 3 names. They pretended to have problems with their car and flagged down Jerzy's car to help him. Jerzy was severely beaten up, tied up and put in the trunk of the car. The officers bound a stone to his feet and dropped him into the Vistula water reservoir near the city, from where his body was recovered 11 days later. Basically, if they don't like it, they will kill you or they will honey trap you.
Wow. It's a miracle that the Berlin Wall ever fell. Jesus.
Yeah.
Oh, my days. The only other important thing from this series, from this episode 7, Duty and Honor. By the way, you know when Irina says to Philip, I got pregnant, like we have a son?
Yeah, I never understood. Was that real?
Well, he asks her, is that real? And her response was, only Duty and Honor is real.
I never understood whether...
So does he have a son?
I have no idea.
Like, was this some ploy?
I have no idea.
Yeah, it's a bit unusual. Like, why was she saying this? Like, trying to convince him to fall in love, back in love, whatever it was.
But does she run away?
I think she does.
Is that the premise then?
That's the end. Like, she does run because he's not going to sell her out, and she does run away. I hope she goes back to her fictional son or whatever. I don't think
you always get caught.
I'm assuming she's not going back to Russia.
Of course not. Well, she was meant to go to Canada, but she goes to California. Something. But to be honest, going to California, I'll say this, going to California is the worst thing a communist or a socialist could do.
Isn't that where all the communists
That's where they all are.
But you just blend in though amongst the ocean
commies. No, you don't.
Just another commie amongst all the San Francisco commies, LA commies.
No, you don't. You don't just blend in with another communist. They will find out who you are.
But there's a herd mentality though, the safety in numbers, I'm assuming. The only other thing I really liked about this episode, I wrote it down, this is the only episode that had a scene that made me laugh. We're laughing a lot, but we're laughing about, like, nothing that actually happened. It's more like we're just finding humour. But this was a scene where there was some humour, where our old friend Amador and Stan were in a bar, and Amador tells Stan, like, bro, go hit on her, she's been looking at you, blah, 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 He's like, I'm married and all that. He's like, come on, we're all married. Like, go hit on her. And he says this, right? Stan says, she's not my type. And Chris goes, you looking for a blood donor? Go talk to her. And I was like, that's a perfect reaction. That's a perfect thing to say to him, And it's the only funny moment. He's the only funny character.
Yeah.
He's the only funny character. Nobody else is funny. There's not much humour in the series. That's the other problem. There's lots of...
It's dry.
I mean, they have sex, they have violence. There's a lot of close calls, family. There's all these other things. I don't think it's fair to say it's dry. But it isn't funny. Chris is the only one who's funny in the series, which is a shame, because they could have been funnier. That's about it. And anyway, we find out Stan is basically in love with Nina now. Episode 8. Mutually assured destruction. Not much is going on in this episode either.
This part is what I love about... They send basically the premise is they send a West German assassin to America to kill 11 scientists.
14 scientists. The KGB sends.
Yeah, sorry, the KGB, yeah. But they changed...
No, they changed their mind. It's ridiculous.
They changed their mind.
And now, Elizabeth and Phil have to kill...
Some, which they have no idea who it is, they have no picture, they have no name, and they don't know who the target is. Like, okay, fine.
This is ridiculous,
Feels
though.
like this is an impossible.
But did nonsense like this happen, though? There's no way this happened.
I think I've heard a story of this.
Bro, there must be some way to get in touch with a contract killer. There might be buyer's remorse.
It goes into radio silence. You give him the job, and that's it. You can't because if.
This
By
is
the way,
incompetent,
let me tell you why contact doesn't happen a lot. Only when it's absolutely necessary. It's because every time you contact, you get caught. Or sorry, there's a chance you will get caught.
Yeah, I understand that.
So
yeah.
that's why they try to minimize radio silence as low as possible. If you only talk that you need to talk, and that's it. So this is why I think it's plausible it would happen. Now, whether it's happened in real life or not, I have no idea. But West German assassins did exist. Hans characters, huge, big,
fat guys,
big necks guys did exist in those, and even now.
He had an amazing accent. Yeah. I loved his accent.
I know, yeah.
It's an amazing accent.
But he was so calm. What I loved about it was so calm when he barged into his room. He was like,
because he was prepared.
I assume you would not kill me because I would be dead by now.
Yeah. I love that. Like, there was this German efficiency. Yeah. He was this portly fellow.
And then there was a bomb next to the door. He was like, I was expecting you.
Yeah, it was so lovely. Like, he was a perfect, villain.
Yeah.
He was a villain, but he was just an amazing guy, But it's just ridiculous. Would they really have targeted 14 United States scientists?
I think they wouldn't have.
Maybe one they would have targeted, not 14.
It's not Breaking Bad,
It's
killed 14, 11 people in 3 minutes.
Ridiculous. Episode 8, broke the what's that word? Like, it just broke the fantasy for me. Like, this is ridiculous. But just the incompetence of it. But they use the most competent German murderer, contract killer, to
commit the most incompetent murder.
The most dumbest thing in the world. Phil and Elizabeth managed to kill the guy, and he still managed to kill one of the scientists.
Yes, the one scientist, 3 FBI agents, and then the FBI goes on a rampage against the.
That's all that really happens in episode 8. In episode 9, it's all about FBI planning. Okay, they killed 3 FBI agents. We're gonna now. Episode 9 was a bit dumb as well. Basically, the FBI wants to assassinate somebody in the embassy. Arcady, who's high up in the embassy.
And he's the new ambassador.
Yeah, he's the new ambassador guy, and I'm like. This is an extrajudicial assassination. Would the FBI do that? That's ridiculous.
See, one thing, this doesn't seem plausible to me at least, is I don't think... Okay, maybe they would plan to kill an agent. Fine, maybe. But to kill an ambassador?
Impossible.
That's literally war.
That's World War III level, so that's ridiculous.
And if you do get caught doing that, you will literally go to jail.
Forget jail, nukes would be flying.
No. Let's say you fail. Let's say they fail. They only kidnap Vlad, right?
Yeah.
I just don't believe how Gad, where his name was Gad, signed off on it.
He was the one whose idea it was.
Yeah, he was the one whose idea.
Ridiculous, bro! It's the dumbest thing. Like, you would not, even a third world country, you would not find this sort of ridiculous nonsense. But the United States, as if they're federal bureau investigating, it's ridiculous, right?
This is the part where it just went the race.
It just went. I mean, episode 8 was already on shaky ground, and now they just went over the top. But let's try to bring our lovely Martha back into the story. Martha and Phil, who's pretending to be Clark, having this lovely relationship. For some reason, Chris is very jealous of this situation, and he basically uses this opportunity to stop Phil. And it does not work out for Chris. Phil basically beats him up, takes him to a hiding place, a safe house, whatever.
Stabs him.
And it stabs him. Accidentally stabs him. Yeah. And they're in the situation what the hell are they supposed to do? But they find out, luckily, from Chris, the FBI is going to do an extrajudicial assassination upon...
Not from Chris.
No?
Marcia.
Oh, Martha. Oh, it was Martha who
Martha tells Phil.
Oh, okay.
Then Phil goes and asks him who are they targeting, and he doesn't say. Then, near the end, he waits till 5 o'clock and says, what time is it? 5 o'clock? Oh, Arcady is dead.
Yeah. And it turns out Arcady isn't dead. They get, some nobody called Vlad instead, because,
He wasn't actually a nobody. He was the son of a high-ranking colonel in Russia.
I mean, for the story, though, he was nobody. He wasn't anyone... He wasn't Arcady.
No.
And he gets caught instead, and poor Chris, who's the only funny character...
Dies.
he just dies. And I'm like, why would you kill him off?
I never understood why they killed him off. There must have been a reason for that, by the way.
I don't know, maybe his contract expired or scheduling. Yeah. I've never seen him in anything else, though. Mm. But it's a bit...
I know, right?
he's not Tom Cruise. I mean, I don't understand.
I mean, you leave a big show, you live for something good. You don't live and become a nobody.
But he was just killed off. And, they introduced, his background, He says, I'm a lone wolf, I don't do marriage, I don't do this and that. And he's just a funny, witty, fast-talking guy. I really liked him, And they just kill him off. And the only good thing that comes out of it is Stan goes ape. He just goes absolutely mental. And he's like, okay, I am now supportive of this extrajudicial assassination plan by the FBI. Because he wasn't for it before. And now that Chris has been found dead on the street, he's like, okay, I'm after these guys. By the way, Stan has Vlad in custody, questions him, tells a really good story. He tells this really good... What was it about? About...
A dog.
Was it about a dog?
When they shoot a bird,
yeah,
the dog goes and gets the animal. It's called smooth,
retriever.
It's called, what's it called? Soft bite.
Yeah,
it's called a soft bite. And it says, now you're in my soft bite.
Yeah, the dog always brings the thing, the shot,
the bird,
the pheasant, or whatever, and he uses it. It doesn't bite into it and ruin the flesh. But he has this amazing story about sometimes the birds aren't dead, but they play dead. And I think the reason why they're playing dead is because once the dog drops him off at his master's feet, they're going to fly off. Once in a while it happens.
Not often.
Not often, And he's basically saying to Vlad, not often, brother. You're not going to be played dead, okay? But anyway, the point is this. He gets him a burger. Gives him the burger. Lovely little burger. Lovely scene. And he says, listen, bro, I know you're a KGB agent. I just want to hear you say you're a KGB agent. And he says, yes, I'm a KGB agent. But I don't understand why Stan blows his brains out. Why does he kill him for?
I don't get it.
He just goes...
Well, it was going to be Arkatin that was meant to die.
But this guy's a nobody, though. Why not just send him back? He doesn't know anything.
To be honest, at this point, it's not really whether you are somebody or not. It's just tit for tat.
So it was anger. It was vengeance.
That's basically it. You've killed 4 of us now. At this time, the tally is 4 against 1,
Yeah.
So It's a tit for tat.
Tit for tat is fine, but my concern is it just sort of ruined Stan for me a little bit because...
American... We expect Russian, Chinese, North Korean, Iranian, any Middle Eastern country, you want the Secret Service to be the most corrupt people in the world. You expect that,
Yeah.
But you don't expect from the American because they always talk about, God says...
British and American.
Yeah. No, well, in this scenario, American, but usually Western. I was going to say Western Secret Service. God says at one point, I can't remember where it was, we will catch them and we will put them behind bars. So in one sentence, you're talking about behind bars, i.e., take them to trial, prosecute them, and them. But then you're going in the next episode, you're going and killing them.
Yeah.
Which one is it?
Which one
are you doing? Are you playing by the rules or are you going off the rules,
I understand 3 FBI agents were killed by the German guy, which the FBI...
But it wasn't execution style.
Yeah,
it was an execution style. It was an explosion. And this was pure barbaric execution style.
Yeah. I mean, fair enough. The KGB did send him to commit those murders, but they retracted it. They were like, listen, we don't want to kill your scientists. But anyway, that all got lost in translation. But the thing is, yes, FBI agents were killed. It's sad. But let's not break protocol.
No, but he kills Vlad because he thinks KGB killed Chris.
Yeah.
But Nina says he wasn't KGB.
It was Directorate S. It was KGB, technically. It wasn't planned.
What I mean is it wasn't sanctioned by KGB.
Yeah.
The KGB did not mean to kill him.
Yeah, Phil accidentally.
Even Director S didn't kill him.
Yeah,
it was
It was, to be fair, it was Chris's fault.
It was Chris's fault. Why are you following him?
Why are you being a bully for? Okay, he walked out of Martha's room, Martha's apartment, smelling of her vagina. I understand you're jealous, but bro, let's not. You don't know who you're dealing with here, and you're gonna die now, and that's what happened.
Yeah.
But anyway, they killed off the funniest guy. They basically tarnished Stan a bit. Because Stan's, I thought he was the good guy, but he's not the good guy anymore to me. So it's a bit sad. The whole episode's a bit. I mean, it seems like this show's starting to collapse piece by piece because it's just getting unrealistic. But that's the problem, though, because they're trying to keep the temperature high, violence, sex, everything as high as possible in every episode. You run out of things that are realistic. Anyway, let's move on. We've only got a few episodes left now. Episode 10, Only You.
So at this point, when they found Chris's body.
This is the episode that you've been basically foreshadowing regarding Gregory.
Yeah. They found Chris's body, and then they scoured his house, this and that, and they realized that the ring was missing.
Yeah.
And now they need to find who it was.
Chris left it. He left it specifically in the trunk.
Oh yeah, sorry, that's right. Yeah, he left it specifically in the trunk, and they found the ring in the trunk. They found the car. Long story short, they found the car. They ID the person who left the car at the lot.
They go through the whole rigmarole, and they find Gregory at the end of the
And they find Gregory's friend.
Gregory's friend, who leads him to Gregory.
Yeah, I can't remember his name. They found Gregory's friend, and then Gregory leads to Gregory. Here, they plant evidence on KGB plants evidence on Gregory as if Gregory killed Chris.
To end the line. So
Yeah, that's it. You found your guy. Yeah. Forget about it.
They tell Gregory though.
Yeah. Claudia tells Gregory. Claudia goes into the house.
Tied all the loose ends.
Yeah, we tied all the loose ends. Basically, the point of this being is he wants to go to California. He says to Claudia, "Why can't I go to California?" He says, "No, you're the killer." You know, that's when she says, "By the way, you're the one who did it." Basically, we tied it to you. He says, "Oh, he says something like, you've thought about everything, haven't you?"
Yeah. He was like, "Well, to be fair, he was he was accepting. He understood this is like part of the plan." But then the stupid thing of like, "Oh, Gregory, we'll send you to Moscow. You'll be a hero. Everyone will know of your heroic, work for the KGB, for the Russian cause." And he's like, "It's not going to work."
But he agrees to it.
He doesn't. He decides.
He settles with the idea. He changes his idea later. Sorry, he changes his mind later on, not to go. But he agrees with the idea of going to Moscow.
Yeah.
Why? As a black person, why would you agree to that? I
think it was a fleeting thing, though. I honestly think he ended up saying what? He said, "Listen, I'd rather go out into the public, have a shootout with the police and just die."
That's later on to Elizabeth.
But the point is this. If you're Russian and you've been in America, it's stupid to think that any black guy would want to go to Russia.
Yeah, I agree.
I'm South Asian. I don't want to go to Russia in 2020.
I know Russian and I wouldn't want to go to Russia.
It's ridiculous to think there's 200 countries. They couldn't send him anywhere?
Cuba. Brazil.
South Africa.
Brazil.
Okay, why not there? I don't understand why they didn't send him to any other country.
I think what they do is because it's safe. You know, when the Cambridge 5 came out, well, the Gold Court not came out, they sent them. Whoever defected, not defected, whoever went to the Russians and said, "Okay, take me back," they send them to Moscow rather than South Africa or Cuba or this and that.
Why not do this? Bring him to Moscow for a little while this calms down, then send him to Brazil, South Africa, whatever.
The thing is, because if it's Brazil, I think, by the way, I'm guessing here, if it's Brazil, then the CIA or the FBI, well, CIA mainly, can get to them because it's not in Russia. Because Russia can't look after its agents or ex-agents in every single country, whereas in Russia, it's easier. You can monitor everyone coming in, you know who's coming in, you know what passports they're using. Whereas in Brazil, how are you going to monitor?
But the thing is this, right? He makes the point. Gregory makes the point. Listen, send me to California. I'll take care of myself. Couldn't they have done the same thing? I in Brazil, he would have been able.
He would have died. They would have killed. Actually, they would have caught him in California. I am 99% sure he would have been caught in California. No,
Brazil. Why
not?
Even
Brazil. If they found Nazis in Brazil or Argentina, which is the same thing, do you think they wouldn't find a black person from New York?
South Africa, then? Come on.
You would stand out. You would a New Yorker in South Africa, a New Yorker in Brazil. You would stand out. Okay, you would stand out more in Moscow, but at least they would have a lead on you. They could control you. They could control who's coming near you because they could know who's coming into the country. They would see the passports.
Yeah, this is the problem that the Soviets had. Like they didn't have a culture that you can bring people in. America, $3 million to defect, and it's America. Like it's amazing to live there. So it's like. People would defect, but the Russians had a problem. Like, did anyone? Cambridge 5 did.
They did. But apparently they loved it there.
I don't know, but they were white though.
Yeah.
They were white guys.
This is the thing. In America, you find every single kind of ethnicity. In Russia, you find about 3-4.
Yeah. And they don't even like each other.
And I was just about to get to that. Even then, they don't like each other.
Yeah, this is not like a good situation for them. But anyway, that's the only thing that happens.
The way he dies, though, I think is very befitting.
Why? Because he's black.
No.
Why though? Why did you say
black? No, I think it's an honorable death the way he goes.
Yeah.
That's what I meant. That's what I meant. It's befitting as it's an honorable. He did what he loved.
Himself.
Yeah, he did what he loved, and he got caught, fine, but he took it like a man, and he didn't kill himself. He went out for his cause. Whether you believe in his cause or not doesn't matter. He went out for his cause.
Yeah, for the cause. And the one thing to be said about Gregory, he is honorable at least. Like he really believed in what he.
When Elizabeth says, "I believe," he says he will do it. I believe because Philip didn't believe him. He thought he was going to go to the FBI. Remember, near the end.
Yeah. But near the end, he does though. No, at the end, he does though. Because there's that scene where Phil comes in and says, "Elizabeth, I'll deal with him." Takes the gun out with the silencer, and Elizabeth says, "Listen, I trust him." And Phil agrees. So they let him out, and he dies, and it works out for everyone except for Gregory. But it's a touching episode, I guess, but not that much happens. It's one of these where it's like the clock in episode 2. Only 1 or 2 things happen, but they're well executed. They're all well executed events.
Suicide by cop.
Suicide by cop. Episode 11.
That's what it should have been called, actually.
Suicide by cop. Yeah. Only you. Not a great name. Episode 11. We're getting near the end now. Covert War.
So in this episode, this is again tit for tat. They kill Zhukov, who was a general who actually trained or oversaw who oversaw the training program of the illegals.
Yeah.
And they kill him in his house in Moscow. Again, this is tit for tat for all the KGB agents and for Chris as well.
Yeah.
And what happens here is not only does Elizabeth get emotional about it, but also Claudia. Because we find out now that Claudia was in love, or they had a relationship with Zhukov. Yeah.
Elizabeth doesn't believe her, though. Elizabeth said that there's a really good... There's actually a very good scene in the car where she says, Zhukov was an easy man to love, I agree. You're not, though. You're not an easy person to love. And I was like, I don't believe you knew Zhukov, you had a good relation. Yeah. I think you're a liar. I love that scene. There are these great moments of dialogue,
Yeah.
I really did enjoy that. What I did not enjoy was the CIA officer that she seduces in the toilet and then takes hostage. Was he the guy who killed Zhukov?
No. He was the one who would have basically given the order.
Okay, but then in the place that she takes him and tortures him, he says, "I'm just a bureaucrat.
Yeah.
I'm taking an order from a guy on top of me. Why are you killing me?" And he made a good point. Why were they targeting him and not like the head of CIA or something?
Well, at this point, you can't.
The actual killer.
Yeah, you can't get to the serial. Sorry, you can't get to the head of the CIA. That's one.
Can't get to the contract killer. They found the German Hans killer. They found West German contract killer.
No, but the thing what happens with these kind of killers is they kill and they leave straight away.
Okay. So
you can't catch them. This is what happens in the Russian mafia as well. Like in London, for example. I think we spoke about this before. What they do is they say
off the podcast.
Yeah, off the podcast, off the pod.
Off the pod.
Off the pod. Basically, what happens is the Russian mafia, for example, wants to kill someone. Yeah, they don't want to use their people here because they leave evidence, they leave this, they have the DNA. What they do is they hire killers, mainly Chechen killers. They fly, same day kill, same day fly back, and you will never catch them.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming, if the mafia is doing this, the CIA will definitely do that as well.
Yeah.
They covertly fly in someone. If they're killing a general, I think they will covertly fly you in. They will not use their own agents there.
Okay, question. Why not take the CIA officer hostage? Fine. Try to find out who the contract killer was. Get the name. Because if it's the Soviet Union, surely you've killed a general. They have the resources to find out who this guy is. Maybe he's an Italian killer. Let's go to Italy.
But that's the thing. Just like Director S doesn't have names, neither do his assassins. They don't have names. They have code names. It might have been Omega. Who's Omega? You have no idea.
But the CIA must have contacted someone to get this Italian killer.
It's Omega.
Okay, but couldn't they get, like, okay, this is what we use to get this guy, use the same thing to bring this guy to target this killer, and then kill him when he goes in for the target? They could have! Are you saying they couldn't have?
No,
What are you defending?
It doesn't work because it's more complicated than that. There's a reasons why they don't use names. There's a reason that that guy's name, whatever John Doe name would be, it will be on a piece of paper underneath 1,000 layers of paper that you could never find. Not even probably the head of CIA would know his real name. There's a reason for that.
Not a real name, but the CIA must have used a process to get him.
Well, yeah.
Okay, he's a contract killer.
Yeah.
That's his business. When you have a business, you need customers. Customers need to contact you.
He's a CIA. He's not a contract. He's a CIA agent flown in to kill the guy.
From where? He's flown into America?
Russia.
A CIA agent in Russia?
Zhukov.
No, the guy who killed Zhukov.
Yeah, he was a CIA agent.
Was he an agent?
Of course.
So, I thought you said if you're in the Russian mafia, you wouldn't use a Russian mafia person to commit a crime. If you're CIA, why would you use CIA?
No, for these certain things, you would use your own agent. I just
Why
give you an
not
example. What I was giving you was an example of how you would do it. You would fly in, kill, and fly back out. That's the only premise
so
I was
the
giving
CIA
you.
agent went to Russia
Yes,
and killed and
then flew right back out again.
But the CIA must know who they sent.
They do, but
so why not torture this guy to get the killer guy?
he wouldn't know. He would not know.
He would know who would know. At least something.
No, I think this is a Pandora's box because at this point it would be not impossible.
It would not be impossible. They could have gotten the guy. This guy is just nothing. He's
they
a
could have, but they
scapegoat.
would be self-destruction. They would find the guy. They would most likely would find the guy, but they would get themselves caught.
I honestly don't buy any of this. I think this is just a weak part in this episode where if they found a West German Hans killer. They had no information about name, face, and they found that guy. You're telling me they could not have worked their way up and found the specific CIA agent who killed Zhukov? He's a general in Soviet. He's a big deal. Imagine if they killed a general in Britain. It's a serious thing. I just think this is just another weak part. And he made a good point, bro. I'm just a bureaucrat. I'm just giving orders. Other people gave orders. Okay, I'm just following orders. Anyway, I don't buy into this nonsense. And this is like 50% of the episode was flashback. Anyway.
Yeah.
Anyway, last two episodes. Episode 12, The Oath. It's an aptly named episode, actually. Because the only interesting thing that happens, the two interesting things that happens is... actually, no, this is the one you're talking about, Viola.
Yeah.
So go on, talk about your Viola issue. In
so
12.
Viola, what happens is, in this episode, she basically changes her mind. Yeah, changes her mind, goes to the FBI and tells the FBI, basically, this is what I've done. This is in episode 1. Was it episode 1 or 2?
2, the clock.
2. Yes, I put the clock in, which is a listening device in it, which was given to me by these people. And this is where, because the FBI knew that there was a couple. They had a hunch there was I think someone else told them there was a couple.
Lots of things have led to the fact that it's a couple.
Yeah, it's a couple. And now, Viola said it was a woman and a man, and it was a couple. And the FBI basically...
get sketches drawn up.
Yeah.
Which look nothing like...
Even if they don't look anything like them. This is a point I don't believe. I just find it hard to believe. Viola broke the law.
Yeah.
Forget that. Viola was a spy. Technically.
Well, no, because she was forced into it, though. No. What?
Okay, you are forced into it, fine. I give you the gun, and I say, go and kill that person. I do not know if you do it or you don't do it.
Or else I'll kill your son.
No. You do it.
She was a brave woman. She was a brave woman.
No, what happens is, you go, on your way, call the police, hello, excuse me, my house, this person is in my house, yes? And that's it. That's all she had to do was go to the office, turn it on, then go to the FBI and be like, by the way. If she did that a day later or the same day, the FBI would not do anything and would not do anything to her. But now, a year or however long later...
A couple of days, I'm assuming. A couple of weeks, I'm assuming.
This is not weeks.
It's not years.
This is not weeks. This is, I would say, at least a year.
No. There was no...
Okay, even weeks, bro. Even weeks. You have had weeks to think about it. Now you're just changing your mind.
But
what if at this point? What if during these weeks, 4 weeks, 3 weeks, 1 week, they gave so much information out on that radio? Yeah. I just think they would not let her out. I just don't think Thank you, Viola. Oh, will you sketch them for us? Oh, thank you very much. Bye-bye, Viola.
Bro, I don't believe they would ever prosecute her. What could she have done, though?
Espionage
She
act.
did not... It wasn't willing participant.
I understand, but why didn't you come to us from the beginning?
But bro, what if these people are dangerous people?
Okay,
they could have come.
We would move you. This is not something that's not plausible. It is a plausible thing. They would move you. They would give you new identities, whatever they have to give you, they would do it. I'm pretty sure. And then they use this to trap them. That's what they used to trap them. They would have done it 3 weeks before, rather than now you losing 4 agents.
So what are you blaming her of? Like she should have come out clean 3 days after the event, as opposed to 3 weeks.
I'm not blaming her anything. And what I'm saying is, this is not plausible that the FBI would just let her go.
Why?
They would. I just don't think.
But bro, think about it like this: you've just gone through you're a regular person. You went through this traumatic event. It's a miracle you came out alive. Your son came out alive. It's a miracle he's healthy now. Let's assume it's 3 weeks.
Okay.
You don't know if they're watching you. You don't know anything. She just had a change of heart. Like, okay, I can't live like this. I'm going to tell the Secretary of Defense what really happened.
If it happened to me, it maybe takes me, let's say, 2 days to just come out of the shock. Yes? Fine. 2 days, fine. 3 days, fine.
3 weeks, fine.
No! No, it doesn't.
3 weeks, bro. I would
No, it doesn't. You're weak if it takes you 3 weeks. It wouldn't take me 3 weeks to come out of a shock that my son was poisoned. 1 day, 1 week, maximum 1 week.
How do you know they're not watching you?
When she went to the wife and told the wife, she could have done that 3 weeks ago.
She did that 3 weeks later, though. No, she did. Eventually,
yes,
she was like...
She could have done that 3 weeks before.
No, she couldn't have. Let me tell you why. I think this is completely reasonable. If I was in her position, I would have spent at least a month thinking, they're after me, they're going to do something, they're going to kill me, they're going to do again. Well, a month goes by, I'm fine, nothing is weird, I'm safe. Okay, now the opportunity of me coming clean comes out. You wouldn't do it after 72 hours. You don't know if they're watching you. I think it's perfectly... I don't think this is the weak part. I think the FBI would have understood, this is just a regular woman, man. She's not trained for this stuff. It's a miracle she even came. How?
No. I genuinely think... I don't think the FBI would just let her go.
Okay, well, let's just agree to disagree on this point. The other thing important thing, obviously, they turned the tables, They used the bug against them. To find out what? To find a meeting? I honestly don't understand this bit here. Because
what happens is there is a colonel. 2 things happening in this episode. One is the guy who gets caught with the alimony charges.
Yeah, but even him, I never understood his role. This is the thing. A lot of things I didn't understand.
He was just an informant.
For who did he work for? What?
He gave.
Where did he work? Defense.
It wasn't him. It was a colonel. It was a colonel who gave...
The colonel, yes, but where did Sangford work? Who was he? Defense Department? I never understood these things, man, because they don't...
SDI. He was in the ballistic missile program.
Okay.
Yeah. So he was in the ballistic missile program about to sell information on ballistic missiles, which were about, I think, 10 years ahead in time. Well, 10 years ahead of Russia, Soviet Union.
That's the last episode.
Is it the last episode?
Yeah. That's in episode 12. The only things I remember from episode 12 is, yes, you're right, they have Sangford on alimony charges. The FBI basically brings him in to question him. I'm not even sure if it's that episode, but...
That's next episode.
Is it the next episode? Yeah. The only thing who they question is Viola. That's fine.
No, this episode, basically what happens is they get married...
Yeah, I was going to get to that, but I was just trying to understand this whole issue about they were using the bug in the Secretary of Defense's room to do what?
Don't turn it off, they said. Don't you remember? They said, don't turn it off.
Now we know what to say.
Yeah.
To screw with them.
Yeah.
Now I understand.
He said, don't turn it off, because once you turn it off, they will know, obviously, that we know. And
the other big thing, obviously, is Phil and Martha. Phil basically needs to get Martha to put another listening device, this time into the FBI's office.
Guard's office.
And it's like, what can I give this woman to convince her to... And he's like, okay, I'll marry her.
Marry her.
That's logical.
You know what? you said the
Ridiculous.
funniest scene, you said it was like in episode 3 or 2 for you.
Yeah.
This was the funniest scene for me before the marriage when Claudia and Elizabeth sitting down. And Claudia was so funny with the glasses and Elizabeth with the glasses.
Yeah.
That was the fun. Then when they come and Claudia with a southern accent.
Yeah.
I love that scene. It was such a charade, but everyone played to their part.
Yeah. They were committed.
It was so committed. It was the best. This is the episode. This is a scene I loved. It was so funny for me.
Was it an actual marriage though? Were they legally married then? Martha and Clark, which is like a cover of a cover.
Yeah.
His actual name is Misha, but then his name is Phil, and now his name is Clark. This is ridiculous.
No, this is plausible.
Is it plausible?
Of course, yeah. You would have 3-4 different names.
No, not that. But was it a legal marriage? Was the usher, was the guy, I don't know, priest, whatever the guy in charge of the marriage, was he legit? Was he a Russian agent?
See, that's what I was thinking. I was thinking the priest would have been an agent. I don't think the priest...
It's not everything is not legal.
No, I don't think the priest was an agent. I think the priest was a real priest. He was a real church, real priest. What I think happens is he has Clark, whoever his last name was, would be a person. So he would have taken his identity.
Yeah.
So the marriage would be real. But not on Clark's name, not Phil's name. If you check Phil Jennings and Elizabeth Jennings, on the records, you will find them getting married.
Yeah. So Clark is like some other guy.
So there's no bigamy, technically.
Okay, then that's fine. Okay, I will buy into that. Yeah. But the whole idea, like, I have to sell you marriage in order to get you to bug, your boss's thing.
Because she was getting to a point where she needed to get married.
Yeah, Martha. To be honest, yeah.
She was about, 35 at this time?
It's ridiculous that Clark was saying, you can't tell anybody about the marriage. It's a secret marriage. Can I tell my mum and dad? Okay, fine, you can tell your mum and dad, but that's it. I'm like, why would you marry him? Are you mental? Like, who would marry into these circumstances? Like, that's overcomplicated. And I'm like, all right, fine. Like, you're just, what is it? You're drunk on love, baby fever. That's basically what it is.
She wasn't even baby fever. I think, like I said, she was just desperate.
Well, there was a scene, I think it was episode 12, where they're having sex, yeah? And she says, Clark, shoot yourself into me. Do you remember that? Like, he's like doggy styling her. And she goes, Clark, shoot yourself into me.
Take me.
I'm like, this is just ridiculous, bro. Take me. It's like over the top. It's too theatrical.
Do you remember the episode where he eats her out?
I know. That's episode 12 or 13 after marriage. Like, they're consummating, and she's like overacting.
Consummating. They've been consummating for at least...
Over the top acting. It's mental. But that's it. No. The episode is called The Oath. We didn't actually mention the main thing that happens, which is Nina reads out this oath in the very early part of the episode.
Yeah.
Did you understand? I didn't get why was she reading an oath. What was the point?
No, she's swearing an oath.
To what?
To Russia.
But she's already part of, like...
No, but she got promotion.
Promoted, okay, I see. But anyway, by the end of the episode, she comes to Arcadia and says, listen, I'm actually a spy for the other side, blah, blah, blah. Now, you have an option. You can either send me to Russia, trial, execution, fine, or you can let me, make myself up to the Mother Russia, Like, I will betray Stan and get information and work for the other side. But only because Vlad was killed. That's the only reason why.
Yeah.
She finds out, I think she just suspects, that Stan killed Vlad, who apparently was the good guy. He was lovely. He wanted to be adopted. He was forced into this. It's a sad story. Vlad seems to be like a lovely guy.
Yeah.
And he dies for nothing, essentially. Just dies out of Stan's anger. And Nina turns on Stan over this. But I love that scene. She basically says, I was for Russia. I switched sides. But I'm back. I will work for you, but it's up to you. You can either kill me or use me. And, Nina grows she grows some balls, isn't it? She grows some nuts.
Yeah.
Episode 13, finale, the Colonel. Okay, this is the one where Stan interrogates Sanford. But again, over what, though? I don't understand a lot of this stuff. Over what? Nina is a Russian agent now. Okay, she's working for the Russians, understood. Bro, it's okay. Sanford basically says, and I remember, Sanford says to Elizabeth, listen, there's somebody, a colonel, a high-level colonel in the military. He's basically switching sides, an informant, and he will tell you the whole story. And everybody feels it. Elizabeth, Phil, Claudia, they're like, this is a setup, bruv. They're setting us up. But this is the thing I don't get. Not much happens in this episode, as far as I can remember. Phil is the one who goes and meets the Colonel.
Oh, no.
But there is no setup for the Colonel. And the Colonel says, listen, this is nonsense. Like, this technology, they're so far out. Like, literally, it's implausible. This is just implausible.
Mm.
You're worrying about nothing. So there's no setup. But Elizabeth goes to pick up something, a recording.
You don't remember?
I don't understand. I don't get it.
Basically, the Secretary of Defense's clock, which records...
Secretary of Defense.
Secretary of Defense. That works on a radio, on a signal. So which means the car has to be always parked next to the clock or wherever, within a radius of it.
Oh, I understand.
So the recording is in the car. You just go and change it every day or every other day, basically.
So what, it wasn't connected to the internet, it wasn't Wi-Fi?
Yeah,
I see, okay.
You would have thunk it, didn't it?
Who would have thunk it?
You would have thunk it. And that's it, basically. She's going to change the recording. And that's when the FBI is waiting for her. So basically, they thought, throughout the whole episode, they thought the Colonel is the trap. You know, the guy who sold them the 50, 10, 20 years ahead of ICBM information, the ballistic information.
Complete
for
nonsense,
50k. Yeah. Well, 50k is 50k. In those days, it would be what? 300k?
No, complete nonsense. The information was nonsense.
Well, yeah. Anyway, they go. But this is where I love. This is where Nina goes to. This is where Nina goes to the safe house.
Yeah.
And Stan says to Nina, after today, like, my bosses will be so happy. You will have your exfiltration process done. He tells her, wait here, don't go anywhere. She's waiting for 2 hours, maybe an hour. And then she just goes, she goes to the embassy and tells Arkady that this is what Stan told me. And then Stan realizes this is a trap because they had a conversation with Claudia, remember, in the car? Mm. They had a conversation that Claudia said to said to Arkady that even though I told my people, no, go to the meeting, I still think it's a trap. Claudia thought it was a trap.
Yeah.
And she still sent them to the meetings.
Yeah.
Talk about killing your own children.
but what else could they have done, though?
No, I understand. You can't go against the center.
Yeah.
You can't go against the center. If the center says go, because what Claudia was saying, this is the closest. What the center was saying, this is the closest we've come to this kind of information.
Yeah.
But then Claudia says the center says the same thing for everything.
Yeah.
Until someone gets caught.
But the thing is, though, this is an episode. I think it's this episode where Claudia makes it clear she's actually cares about her agents. Because Elizabeth was like, I want a new handler. Claudia's like, okay, I'm going to get replaced, fine. But until then, I will protect my agent. Do you remember that scene when
she says, I'm going to get replaced anyway? You know what they made me do? Fill out a form which had 27 sections in it.
Yeah. But this is the other problem I have, though, with... it just seems a bit unnecessary. Claudia goes out, hunts down the CIA officer from God knows which episode, episode 11. Mm. The one responsible, apparently, for some reason, he's responsible for killing Zhukov. And she, it's really interesting, like, really clever how she goes in, like, the silly old batty woman who goes inside, shock stuns him, poisons him, sits his neck and just watches her.
Juggler.
And I'm like... Why, though? Like, was this pure vengeance? Was this sanctioned by the center?
No.
But what was the point of this? Like, just to make it clear to us, Claudia really did love Zhukov or something?
Yeah, just simple as that. It was just vengeance.
I don't understand.
To be honest, I
don't agree with the CIA officer being killed. He had a good point. He's just a bureaucrat, man. Come on.
No, whether he had a good point or not, that's beyond the point here, to be honest. I don't think that agents go out and kill on their own at 007.
Yeah,
They don't do that. Because if you do, you get reprimanded. Reprimanded means Siberia.
Yeah.
You don't do, because you are jeopardizing everything if you do. Because,
you don't go off the reservation.
Yeah, if you go off the reservation, you're jeopardizing. Because if you kill someone, then, first of all, you never kill a CIA agent.
Yeah, exactly.
Or head of CIA something.
Or high-level bureaucrat.
You don't feel that, Because if you do, you bring... even gangsters know. If you don't, even the mafia knows, you don't kill a police officer.
Yeah.
You don't. You just simply do not touch a police officer.
Yeah.
Anything to do with police officers, you don't even go near it. Same thing, you don't kill KGB agents or you don't kill CIA agents.
So can you say the same thing about the CIA killing Zhukov, a general in Soviet Union?
Yes.
That's mental.
That's the same thing.
Did that happen? Is that a real thing that happened?
I don't even think that any assassin would get to
I
general.
don't think, yeah.
You would have to go through 20 layers of security to get to even to the door of...
Okay, bro, you said same day they fly into Soviet Union, kill and fly out.
Let's assume that's
impossible.
correct.
Impossible.
No.
Soviet Union was like their airports were fortresses.
No,
There's
no,
no
no.
way you could have gone in.
No, they
The
were
only way-
paratroopers.
Okay, but either that, but even paratroopers, bro. It's the Soviet Union. I'm pretty sure
It's
a fortress.
No,
the whole
no.
country.
No, there's you have certain different kinds of radars, and the radars usually only detect at an extremely high altitude.
Yeah.
And that's how they kill Osama bin Laden. They go in an extremely low altitude. If you go in at that altitude, no one catches you, no one sees you even because there's no radar.
At night.
Because there's no radar to even see you at that point. And I think that's what would have happened anyway if they did.
But
do
they
that.
don't explain it, bro.
They
The
don't
fact that we're
explain-
speculating,
yeah.
even though we literally watched it.
Yeah.
I mean, I would have thought it was like some Russian guy in Russia got the money. Like he was wire transferred in money, and he's the one who's... Because it's more plausible that a Russian killer would kill General Zhukov as opposed to some guy flying in.
I don't think the CIA would trust a Russian to do that.
Okay, good point.
No.
Yeah. Good point. Yeah. So I don't know how they killed a general in Russia. It's insane.
I think it's impossible. Well,
Yeah,
not
it's ridiculous.
implausible. I don't think it's doable.
Bro, it's ridiculous. Can we agree
Yeah.
that it's ridiculous?
No.
you know?
Killing a general?
And, this... Anyway, the last thing to end on is...
By the way, Zhukov was a real general during World War II.
Yeah, I know.
But it has nothing to do with this guy.
I've got nothing to... I know Zhukov,
They just stole the name.
They just used the name.
Yeah.
And the only other thing that happens is, Philip, being the badass, comes in with the car, saves Elizabeth in the nick of time. They have a getaway, and they manage to get away, but she gets shot. She lives through it.
Yeah.
And that's it. That's the end of the story. I mean, nothing... I mean, the only other thing is Paige, at the very end, who, for some reason, they went to... Well, not for some reason. Both Paige and Henry... We haven't even said anything about Paige and Henry in our discussions. That's how irrelevant they actually end up being.
They are.
I mean, there was some episode where they hitchhike and some psychopath gives them a ride and they survive it. Like, because, little Henry smashes the psycho in the head with a bottle and they run away. Nothing comes of it, though. I'm assuming they're setting up some amazing thing for season 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, whatever. But the kids are just...
It, why don't you?
I don't know.
Have you seen it?
I don't think... I don't remember season 2 even now. I didn't see it.
Did you see what happens to the kids, though?
I actually don't remember what happened.
No?
I don't remember. I have seen it, though, but I don't remember. Let's not go into that. Let's not ruin it.
Big things happen.
Big things happen. But
Big things happen.
But that's it. That's the end of the season. Everything's wrapped up in a bow. Everybody's safe. Nobody gets caught. And it wasn't a good ending. That's my point. It wasn't a good ending.
One thing I loved about the ending was the...
Everything I like,
emergent-
you hate. And everything you hate, I like.
No, because I like...
Sorry, everything I hate, you like.
No, because I like historical things. I like if something is especially to do with government, like secret secret agencies. I love anything to do with that. And when they put the paint on the cars, that was a secret way of saying abort mission. Do you remember the paint on the doors of the cars?
Yeah.
That was so beautiful.
Yeah.
When she saw that, Claudia, she went into panic mode and she drove into the park and said, "It's a trap, but there's no trap." And then Philip was like, "This is not a trap.
That's the other one, yeah.
That was so beautiful.
Yeah.
Did you see when Phil turned right and the car from the other end was going opposite direction? Did you see the marker on that? Yeah.
In an earlier episode, like where they get kidnapped by their own KGB agents, and they get tortured and there's damage. In order to explain it to their kids and everyone, they literally drive into a tree, have a car accident, and then they come home. We had a car. I love that. I was like, okay, that would have happened.
That definitely
that would have happened because you have to explain all the time that you've wasted. All the time that's been gone. So okay, there are moments of amazing realism, interspersed with mental crazy nonsense that would never happen. Even okay, either you're realistic or you're not. Okay, let's just end it on this. Let's give our final takes or when we think of the wrap up of the season. Because I didn't think I'd be this upset. I've gotten progressively more upset as we've gone through the episode. Because when we were talking, if you go back, what time is it now? When we were talking the first few minutes, I was very excited about episode 1 because it was good. But I didn't actually realize as the episodes on review, it actually doesn't get better, it gets worse. But anyway, you tell me your review, because I need to calm down a bit first. Because I didn't expect to get upset by all this ridiculousness.
Let me just recap. The whole premise of the series is based on the illegals. Now, if you read about the illegals, again, going back to how we started, in 2010, there was a swap between the Russians and the Americans, and the British as well, by the way. Basically, yeah, that's what it was based on. So that's what I love about it. It's based on a true story. It's based on something so amazing. I think this is like an amazing part of, well, amazing in a very loose way of saying, part of world we live in, where these people are literally airdropped into Canada. From Canada, they go into America. Then they look at the birth certificates to see who was born around the same time as they were. They take the name. That's how it works, by the way. That's how they stole their identities. Yeah. And in 1940s, during Hitler time, World War II, the same thing used to happen. Hitler used to send submarines to America, and then they would go into New York Harbor, wherever it was called, I can't remember, and then they would pop out from the submarines and then try to infiltrate into America. Obviously, most of them got caught, but that's how they used to do way before even Soviet Union did it. And that's what I love. I love that part. Now, the things I don't like is if you're going to write a non-fiction story, which is basically, and this is a non-fiction, I think I would take it as a non-fiction, by the way, then keep it as a non-fiction. Again, going back to what I said, I don't see a FBI agent or even attempting to kill an ambassador. That's literally an act of war. That's how World War I started. Like I said, they killed Franz. They killed Franz Ferdinand. The rest is history, obviously. You don't do that. You don't do things like that unless it's commissioned. If it's commissioned, that's a different story.
This wasn't. This was literally revenge.
Yeah, this was revenge for what? I'm sorry, but 3 FBI agents is not worth a world war.
Yeah, let's not have nukes flying over 3 guys.
I would give the show, and I've what I gave the Tyrant, I think it was very high. It was very high. I realize now, because I'm going to give this a 6, but I'm not trying to say this is about 20% better than Tyrant. It's not 20% better, but
do you want to retroactively give Tyrant a lower score?
Lower score. So this looks better in comparison to
Tyrant. So what is Tyrant?
I would say 4, maybe 3.
3 over pick one. Half of
3, I would say. Yeah, I would say, because this was good, but it wasn't as good as Tyrant. So 5 and the 6 is just way too similar to each other. Yeah. So I would give this a 6. Why? Because it was amazing. I love the storyline. It was an amazing storyline, and I knew the story. I've read about the story, and every time, how you were reading about Tyrant and you were going into reading about people, I used to do this for this. I used to go and see did this happen? And I used to Google the name Zhukov and see if a Zhukov existed, which they killed.
Yeah.
So for that reason,
6 or 5?
6.
6 out of 10. So Jacob's score is 6 out of 10. Is that what you wrote down on your piece of paper? I was actively trying not to look.
Yeah.
Okay, so now Shane is going to give his final thoughts on the thing. So like I said, I really did love the fact that there was family, there was love, there was violence, there was sex. Yes, it got edgy, like some people, sadomasochist people here and there. Okay, fine. But it had the whole, everything you were looking for was in there. They made sure to put everything in for everyone. Lovely, that's great. Strong start. Episode 1 was very good. Episode 2 got better. But it got worse. It did not get better, and I didn't realize it. Only now, on this, literally off the pod, I realized it just was getting worse. It was like, okay, extrajudicial assassinations, no. Hans, like KGB sends West German assassin, contract killer. We change our minds, though. And guys, can you sort this mess out for us? I don't believe you. Okay, this is ridiculous. And it just got to this point where either you're realistic or you're just bat beep. You're just nonsense. You're batty. And it got to the point where very quickly, episode 6, halfway through, it was ridiculous. And I was like, this is not realistic. Stick to the core things. I'm not even that interested. The things that you are interested in, the illegals, Zhukov, and all the real stuff, that to me, and we talked about this during Tyrant, it's okay, I'm not that interested. What I was really interested in was the family, the love story, the cat and mouse between Stan and Phil and Elizabeth, and it was these things, that like the 1980s was a real time, and it was a time of like cultural shift, and do more with the parents and the children. We've seen spy shows. I've seen lots of spy stories. I want to see more about the family. I want to see more about the romance. I want to see more about these delicate moments, you know? And they weren't really doing that for me. So one of my biggest problems was, yes, you put everything there. You gave me all the stuff, but you didn't focus on the things I wanted you to. Number one. Number two, it was just ridiculous. And number three, and this is probably the biggest thing I have against the show, how can I even put this? If a show starts strong, either keep it at that level or get better. If a show starts okay and gets better, that's the best. Each episode getting better than the best, better than the last one. What you don't want is this feeling of cascading down the stairs of like, okay, things are actually not getting better, they're getting worse. I'm paying less attention. I was literally not remembering episodes as time went by because I was like, okay, episode 3, nothing's happening. Episode 4, nothing's happening. Things were happening, it's just they weren't interesting anymore to me. And things were getting worse. And I'm not just talking about this ridiculous stuff like assassinating generals in Soviet Union. I'm just talking about they're not focusing on the things I care about, so I'm just losing interest. So my score, you gave them 6 out of 10. What did I give Tyrant? I give Tyrant 6 out of 10. So the way I do my scoring, I said this before, you get a 6 from me if you entertain me. If you didn't entertain me, then we can look into 5s and 4s and 3s. But if you entertain me, you get a 6 automatic. It's like in university. In university, it's easy to get 60%. 70, 80, 90, those are much harder to get. I would give this show a 7 out of 10 because it entertained me. It was entertaining. But it just got worse. And if you get worse, you can't do better than 7 in my opinion. And either be realistic or just be ridiculous because these things are nonsense. There's no way, okay, there's no way they kidnapped a CIA agent and then let him go. She let him go. Remember, she captured the CIA bureaucrat.
Oh, yeah.
And then she just let him go. As bloody if you would do that. No way that's plausible.
You killed.
You have to kill. Like, you've seen your face. Mental stuff. Anyway, I don't know why I got so upset. Like, it's just every episode is getting worse for me as we were reviewing.
So, 7.
7 for me, 6 for you.
Okay, so the next show will be The Morning Show.
So, yes,
which is on Apple TV.
Apple TV Plus, The Morning Show, Season 1. Well, I don't know if they've gotten any more seasons on the calendar. But anyway, Off the Pod is done.